What is up, guys? My name is Graysand, and in today's video, I'm doing a tier list. It's been a while since I did one, but they're so fun to make. And in today's tier list, I'm going to try to go a bit in depth on each thing since there aren't that many things to put in each category. We're doing Isekai anime. Isekai is one of my favorite genres, I'd say. Probably right below Slice of Life and then maybe Shonen, but Isekai is definitely up there when it comes to my top anime genres themselves. There are 15 isekai on the list today. Each one I'll throw in a tier. I'll say what's good about it, what's bad about it, something that I really enjoyed, and maybe something that holds it down from being in the next category up. So without further ado, here we go. So the first isekai is probably the most popular isekai, just like in the overall general mainstream, everyone kind of knows what this anime is Sword Art Online. Now, picture this. Sword Art Online just came out. Everything is going nice and smoothly. And then it keeps on focusing on Aincrad. They don't skip 25 levels per episode. They don't not show you the boss fights. They develop the characters. You get to see epic fight scenes. You feel lost when characters die. The whole world feels so intense. We get to see all these beautiful landscapes, everything. If we had gotten that, Sword Art Online would most definitely be an S tier anime. But we didn't get that. So Sword Art Online is a C, mostly because of its concept. You're in a video game, trapped. If you die in the game, you die in real life. Anyone can become pretty strong if they learn the moves of the game, the strategies, you can gain resources, have a house, everything. So it's pretty cool conceptually, but it really dropped the ball when it comes to execution. I really do not understand why they thought it was a good idea to just start skipping floors. Those boss fights were awesome. Seeing Kirito and some of the others fight was awesome. Everyone has their unique powers. Some people were speed, strength, dual wielding. Like, there was everything that you would want in a fantasy style isekai anime. And yet, we didn't get that. So just on its concept, I'll keep it above the bottom, but it really, really, really dropped the ball, which is disappointing because Sword Art is one of my first anime, and I have like a soft spot for it. If this was Alicization, I'd maybe give it like a generous B, but this is just Sword Art as a whole franchise, and after it dropped the ball in that first season, it just goes downhill and downhill and downhill. So C tier for Sword Art. Favorite character would be Kirito, but also the least favorite part of SAO is the fact that Kirito is completely cracked. It kind of takes a little bit of the suspense out of the show. So yeah. So next is Rising of the Shield Hero. So Rising of the Shield Hero, similarly to Sword Art, it kind of embraces that video game element of an isekai, where you've got grinding, XP, stuff like that, but it doesn't drop the ball. I'll give Shield Hero, it's either like a low A or a high B. For now, I'll put it at the top of B. Maybe I'll move it up later. But basically, you've got 4 people who are pulled over to another world, and each one of them becomes like this special hero based on their class. So the main character, Naofumi, he's the shield hero. So he's not allowed to use any other weapons except for like the shield that's permanently attached to his arm, basically. But the thing is, he can develop skills for that shield. So if he kills a certain monster, he can basically feed it to the shield, and now the shield will be able to like absorb some trait from that character. So if he beat a rubbery monster, he could make a rubbery shield. That's just an example. And so it's got some pretty solid characters. I think Naofumi definitely is the highlight character of the show, but overall the story's pretty solid. It's nothing too special, but it's not boring at all. You're always interested in what's going to happen next. It's got some pretty cool characters. Naofumi's cool. Rastalia is a solid character. Philo is Philo. So if I had to pick a favorite part to this anime, it's the fact that it does what Sword Art wanted to do, but it does it far, far better. The video game element with, actual risk of death and stuff. So Shield Hero is a high B, maybe A minus. Next is My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom. And first off, anime, like, they need to like make a cap on title length because these titles are so ridiculous. But anyway, this is a reverse harem rom-com isekai, I guess, is all the categories it falls under. Our main character is this girl, and she dies in her main world, and she ends up in a video game that she played where she becomes the villain of the story. And based on her knowledge of the game that she's played, she knows that basically all the routes in the game include the death or, excommunication of this villainess character. So she's like, dang, what am I supposed to do? I'm literally the character who's gonna end up kicked out or killed. So she is doing everything in her power to change the route of the game from within so that, she doesn't die. And the thing is, as she's making these changes, because she's less of a hostile character, she kind of develops like a massive harem of all the other characters in the show. So it's a pretty amusing show. I actually really like the characters. I like Katarina, which is the main character, a lot. She's funny. Can be a little annoying at times, but she's mostly pretty funny. And as far as the isekai goes, this one was really, really enjoyable. And they confirmed season 2, which I was super excited to hear. So overall, if I had to pick a spot for it, might be like a little generous. Actually, no, I'll just put it probably like B. It's really good. If you're not into, harems or rom-coms, then you won't enjoy it as much. But I think it tells its story very well. It's got a funny and interesting concept. It doesn't push the harem part too hard. Like, it doesn't get all ecchi or anything. It's pretty wholesome overall. And it's just a really, really enjoyable isekai anime. 12 episodes, you get right through it. Solid B. Maybe like a low A if we're being generous. So next is Angel Beats, which is technically an isekai. It's a reincarnation isekai. Well, reincarnation afterlife isekai. It's hard to explain. But basically, after these kids have died, they end up in this almost like next world, right? And they are all kind of working together to fight against this administrator type character. And it's interesting because they're in the afterlife, so death is not really as much of a concept. Like, people can die, but they're gonna come back. It just takes a little while. And it definitely is pretty comedic and kind of like one of those like drama shows. It's almost where it's gonna get sad down the line because they're setting up all these characters to have really sad backstories for how they died, but a lot of them don't remember. So they're kind of just running around doing childish things, fighting against this administrator character. Overall, it's like a solid show. I didn't like the execution because eventually the show progresses to the point where it's like, as characters start to move past their burdens or whatever, they're able to leave this world and head into reincarnation or whatever comes next. I didn't like the way they execute that part. And I don't want to just throw the whole plot out there, but I think that there were a lot of characters that they set up in the in the afterlife to be really interesting. So you start to wonder oh, I wonder what happened to this character. How did they end up here? What trauma, whatever, what got them here? And then they would just be like, oh yeah, so-and-so reincarnated off screen. Whereas we would get backstories on characters who you weren't as interested in. And, maybe that's because the ones who were interesting didn't also need a good backstory, but it just didn't feel executed properly. I'm going to give it a C. It's decent. It's one of those ones where you could also watch it in a day. But overall, if I'm recommending isekai, I'm not even going to think of Angel Beats. And then if I do think of Angel Beats, I can think of multiple anime to list over it. So next is Ascendance of a Bookworm. Not that many people really watch Ascendance of a Bookworm, I've realized. It's kind of a slice of life isekai, but at the same time, there's a hint of magical action in the show. So basically this girl, she, as always, lived in the main world. She died by being buried under books because she was a bookworm in her original world. All she really cared about was, reading books, gaining that knowledge, and literally books fell on her and she died. So she reincarnates into the body of this little girl, and she's like, all right, cool, I'm in another world, no problem, let me get a book and life will be good. But there's no books in that world. So basically, this isekai is literally this little girl, well, with the mind of a teenage girl, just going on this relentless adventure to make a book. She like wants to make paper. She needs a printing press. Like she knows how books are made, but none of that technology is in this medieval style world. And her family's like, what the heck is she talking about? Her friends are like, this is so weird. It has an elite amount of world building. Like they build up the entire world around her extremely well. It's just an interesting world overall. It's nothing too out of the ordinary. It's medieval style, kind of what you think when someone says fantasy anime. It's like that, but they go so in depth, on the political structure of the world, the class system, what people have to do to survive. Like right before winter came, they all went like hunting so they could prepare the meat. Like they go so in depth, which is why it's like got slice of life level pacing, but it's actually pretty interesting. And the second season, there's like a little bit more magic and stuff like that. I love this isekai, honestly. I think it's highly underrated for people who are okay with the slower pacing. So I'm gonna put it in A tier. It'll probably end up at like the bottom of A tier, but it's really, really good in its character development, its storytelling, its world building. You wouldn't think that an isekai about a girl who just wants to read a book would be that good. Personally, I really, really enjoyed it. So next is Saga of Tanya the Evil. Also one that I really enjoyed. That is, I think, a little undermentioned in comparison to some of the other big name isekai. It's more of like a tactical war isekai. It occurs during what would pretty much be World War II. They're using those style rifles, but there's also magic integrated into the fighting. So like, yes, there are certain people who don't use the magic and they're just kind of foot soldiers, but there's this pretty neat like flying shoot magic beams style fight system layered into the show. And then we've got like this grown man who, as always, died in his original life, but as he was dying, he literally like spoke to God, but he doesn't believe in God or this being. He calls him Being X. He doesn't believe in them. And Being X is literally talking to him as he's about to die. Like time slows down around him and Being X is talking to him and he still won't believe. He's like, no, if you were God, why does this happen? Why is the world so blah, 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 right? And so they have like an interesting conversation. And eventually it leads to Being X saying like, oh, so would you like believe in me if, you had more hardship? And the guy was like, I mean, maybe, but probably not. And Being X is like, okay, bet. And so he sends this guy to like this war-torn world, reincarnates him in the body of a little girl. So, it's almost like God is like kind of spiteful in this world, which I found pretty amusing. And then the whole like war tactical stuff, it's not, the only thing I can really compare it to is like Code Geass, because that's one of the only like war anime I've really seen. I wouldn't say that they're similar, but like those tactics in the fights are a little similar. I wouldn't say that Tanya is like Lelouch level smart or anything like that, but you definitely do see like war strategy. They have meetings, oh, we need to attack this way, that way. It was really, really good. Like when I first binged it, I was like, yo, wait a minute, this was actually a really good isekai. And then there's a movie that comes after it, and that movie was amazing. So I'm not gonna put it in S because there's, to me, only really one on this list that like belongs in S. Although there are two that like are probably gonna touch S given a little bit more time. But I'm gonna give Tanya like an A+. It is a really good isekai. I think my favorite thing about it is probably like the war element, the fact that they integrated like a magic system into the war, and then the whole spiteful god concept was amazing. If I had to point out a weakness for the show, I don't really know if I have a weakness that I would point out to the show. Sometimes the whole like god element gets a little thrown underneath the fact that Tanya is a bit of like a sadistic character, but that's not really an issue. Tanya's a really cool character to watch because she really does have no mercy. Like if someone acts up, she'll send them to the front lines, or actually one time she sent someone to the back lines and was like, yeah, you guys are like kind of useless, whatever, go to the back. And the next thing you know, the enemies did a sneak attack on the back line and like bombed the building those guys were in. And Tanya was just like, that's tough. How unfortunate that these poor guys were sent back there right before a bombing. And, we don't necessarily know if she knew that was going to happen, but she definitely doesn't care that it happened. I'd say anything from like B up is you should go watch it, but like A and S is like, go watch it. Next is I've been killing slimes for 300 years, so I maxed out my level. I'm pretty sure that's the whole title. And again, they need to just cap the characters in these titles. But one of my friends summed up this anime perfectly. It's wholesome mid. That's it. It's this lady, she dies from overwork, she ends up in another world, and she doesn't want to do anything in her new life. So she's reincarnated into this witch. She spends her day-to-day life just like literally killing slimes and vibing. And eventually, 300 years passes because she's immortal. And, as she's been living her lazy life, she doesn't realize that she's reached max level within that world. And so eventually rumors spread that she's like the most powerful being on the planet. And so people keep showing up to challenge her. They're like, oh, I heard you were the strongest. Let's fight. And she doesn't even realize how strong she is. She'll use a spell that she had originally been using for, let's just take a random example, not even in the show, but like she'll take a spell she's been using to chop down trees. And she'll use that to attack. And then next thing you know, she accidentally like chops a mountain in half. That's an exaggeration, but the point is she became that strong. So like no one can really beat her. And it's really just, she makes some friends. She's vibing, it's just a wholesome slice of life anime. So it's just a C. If I had to say, like, my favorite part is probably the wholesomeness. My least favorite part is the fact that it's just not special. It's wholesome mid. Perfect description. ReZero. ReZero is one of my favorite anime ever, so I will admit I'm slightly biased here. But at the same time, I think it's worthy of being one of my favorites and an S tier as an isekai. You've got everything. You've got the medieval fantasy world with a complex political dynamic occurring with a class system, demi-humans, regular humans, everything that you need to like kind of set up that fantasy world. Then you've got the main character who, when we first meet him, is, he was a loser, for being fully honest. And he kind of stays a loser for a good amount of the show, but he has this unique ability. Every time he dies, he can go back to a checkpoint. He doesn't get to choose a checkpoint, but there's a checkpoint that he goes back to. So he calls it Return by Death. I think the addition of Return by Death allows ReZero to do so many interesting things, because while the people around him might not see it, he's developing so much as a character. But to other people, it's only been like a day since they met him. And so we, the viewer, get to see him go through so many traumatic things. I mean, this man goes through some of the most traumatic deaths I've seen in any anime. Getting eaten alive, twisted up, burned, like it's just crazy what happens to this guy. But he keeps pushing because he wants to save the people around him. And, one of the main complaints about him is like he's doing all this, like he's simping after Emilia, who's like one of the girls in the anime. And I will say he kind of is, like if I'm being fully honest, but at the same time, the further into the show you get, he's not simping as much as he is just kind of like trying to better himself and make it in this world. Honestly, he wants himself and the people he cares for to be safe, and yet they keep getting caught up in these crazy things. So even when he's simping less, his goal is still to protect her, but it's not just her anymore. It's like, I want to protect those around me who I care about and the people who they care about. So personally, I think he's grown a ton as a character. Some of ReZero's best episodes are just dialogue episodes where like he there's one episode where he's talking about all the things he hates about himself, and a different character is saying how they see him, and how they're such a direct contrast. And he points out that like he wants everything, but he doesn't want to work for it. Like, he knows his flaws. And I thought that was really cool about the show. It's got a really good story, some crazy cool characters. It's got a great collection of waifus, or whatever you want to call them. It can be funny at points. It can be extremely dark at points. It's just a really good show. So I love ReZero. I think it's the best isekai out there right now. I'm totally willing to debate that in the comments or whatever. If you think ReZero is trash because XYZ, let's talk about it. But I think ReZero is totally worthy of S tier. So next is So I'm a Spider, So What? Actually, we'll leave that for later. So next is Konosuba. It's a little hard to define Konosuba because like it is clearly an isekai anime, but it's also just like a really great comedy. Like if I had to, if this was a comedy tier list, Konosuba is going in S. This is an isekai tier list. So I'm gonna put it in A because like I would put it in S. Like I said, it's funny, it has amazing characters. The humor dynamic between the four of them is just elite. I've never died from laughter so many times than when I was watching Konosuba. It is that good. But the isekai element, it's kind of generic, but that's kind of on purpose because it's the type of isekai that makes fun of isekai tropes. So on one hand, it's great because it's making fun of those isekai tropes, but on the other, it kind of has to follow some of those tropes so that it can make fun of them. So like something like ReZero breaks certain molds. It follows others, but Return by Death keeps it extremely unique. Whereas Konosuba is very cookie cutter, but also not. So point is, it's a great isekai anime. It's an amazing comedy anime. I just can't put it in S tier because it deliberately follows almost every generic trope you can follow. There's a demon lord to fight at the end, like stuff like that is so basic, but they do it so well that it doesn't drop to like C tier or anything. So I'll leave it in A tier. Like I said, if this was about comedy, it would be S tier easily. Kazuma is one of the funniest main characters out there. Aqua, Megumin, Darkness, best girl trio right there. They're all hilarious, all three of them. Any interaction those four have together, you'll be laughing. The isekai element, I love that it makes fun of the generic things the isekai does sometimes. Sometimes it subverts your expectations. You think it's going to go one direction, it goes in a comedic direction in a different way. It's just a great anime. Like if I had to like rank the anime, go watch this one, then this one, then this one, I'd say maybe go like watch like watch the 2Bs and the S, and then watch Konosuba, because then Konosuba's already funny, but now you'll also see like some of those isekai tropes pop up in Konosuba, and then you'll get to laugh about them. So it's just great. I mean, I've said it's great like 10 times, but that's the point. It's just great. Next is Mushuko Tensei, the grandfather of isekai, and you can tell that Mushuko is one of the like earlier written isekai anime, but it does it so well. I think that like if Mushuko really is the so-called like grandfather of isekai, and a lot of these other ones that came out later copied it, they did add their own twists. Shield Heroes got the shield, Return by Death, but Mushuko is like, it wrote the formula, but it wrote it perfectly. It's kind of like how in shonen, a lot of anime, they kind of follow the shonen formula, but if they do it well enough, it still ends up being an amazing anime. That's what Mushuko Tensei is. You could tell that Mushuko wrote the book, but it made no mistakes while it wrote it. You got a character who was like a loser in their main life, but had a lot of trauma as well. They go to another life, or they die and they end up in another world. Just because they died and ended up in the other world doesn't mean all their trauma is instantly gone. And I think that is one of the things Mushuko does well, and that's something that ReZero does well. I think Shield Hero doesn't really point out what was going on in his previous life as much. And I personally really enjoy it when the isekai remembers the fact that these characters were doing something in their life before. And, you know, I think that Mushuko does it best. Like, he's in this new world and he sees some kids playing and he has a flashback to when kids in his original life, like, bullied him. That was, like, perfect right there. And so that alone was great. And then you've got this amazing, beautiful, expansive world. That world is huge, with so many different species, characters. There's a great amount of character development. Mushuko wrote the formula, but it wrote the formula perfectly. Only complaint I have about it is, like, the person who reincarnated, dude's like 35 or something. I don't know. He's a grown man, and he does some pretty, like, perverted things to some of these female characters, and they're like 12, 13. So, like, that can be a little no thank you, I'll pass on that. So that one pretty major red flag that it's such a good anime. Next up is Full Dive. The ultimate Full Dive game is shittier than real life. Like that, the title is something stupidly long like that. It falls under the, hey, can we put a cap on anime titles category? But basically, it's gonna be the first D tier. And I actually just noticed. Whoops. My bad on the camera if you're still here. So Full Dive, whatever, it's a D tier anime. I didn't put an F tier because I knew that, like, only this one would probably be an F tier, but it just came out. Basically, the whole concept is VR gaming completely exploded. Next thing you know, someone thought it would be a good idea to make a VR game that's, like, hyper realistic. So everyone was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be mad cool, whatever. So it's got the medieval setting, everything you'd expect in, like, a, you know, it's kind of like you're hopping into SAO, right? But then they get into the game and they realize, like, oh, if I'm out of shape in real life, I'm out of shape in the game. I can feel pain. I can, like, be actually injured. No, thank you. So the game basically dies, right? So then there's this one kid named Hero, which is very generic if you ask me, just for these anime. He, you know, ends up buying the game because the one he wanted isn't out, and this girl tricks him into buying it. And he goes and he plays it, and it really is about as ridiculous as you would expect, you know? He feels pain, you know, he gets stabbed, and he's like, oh my gosh, you know, it hurts so much, whatever. And it's just not that interesting. It's boring. I will say, like, I started it because it's out right now. It's a spring 2021 anime. And, you know, I checked out all of them. I watched, like, the first 2 episodes. They were all right, whatever. So then I dropped it. And then I was like, let me go give it one more chance. The 3rd episode is really funny, like, extremely funny. But that's it. So, like, maybe if I watch it for comedic reasons, you know, I can maybe pass it as like a low C or whatever. But as an isekai, the world is very boring, bland, plain. The whole concept of hyper-realism isn't executed as well as you would think it is. So overall, just thumbs down. Wouldn't recommend. Tough. Next is that time I got reincarnated as a slime. So if I could, I'd probably, like, duplicate this image, because Slime season 1 goes about here, right? It's pretty chill. It's got a couple cool action scenes, but basically it's just like this guy, he dies, he ends up in another world. That's literally the description for every isekai. He's reincarnated as a slime, but he has this power where he can kind of, like, absorb the powers or attributes of the things that he absorbs. So, you know, he eats a whole bunch of magic rocks, he gains a whole bunch of power, whatever. By the time he comes out of this cave, he's basically like god tier. And he starts to develop his own attacks, whatever. He ends up at a goblin village and decides he like defends the goblins from these wolves, and the wolves end up like bowing to him. It was pretty cool from that point on, and then it's just really wholesome. It's like him going on these adventures to like meet people that can help him build a monster nation, like a friendly monster nation, right? He puts these rules in place, like let's not attack humans, we'll stay to ourselves, we'll make a flourishing country. And that alone was just really enjoyable for the first season, right? There's like a couple fight scenes where some enemies pull up, whatever. Those were really cool. Everything about Slime is like a really good isekai anime, right? Then season 2 came out. Season 2 part 1. That would probably go in S tier. It steps up the action, the character, like Demon Time Slime. That's the perfect way to describe season 2 part 1. There are like new powerful enemies who can actually stand up to Rimuru, because Rimuru, he's the main character, he's hella overpowered, but now these other characters start to pull up who are pretty broken or use broken strategies to kind of get around him. And it was amazing. Like when they started like fighting, oh my goodness, I was hype every single week. I was either more hype or as hype for Slime as I was for ReZero season 2. Part 2 was airing at that time. So Slime part 2, it was so good. Like season 1, looking back, it was wholesome, it was chill. Even the action was like, it was really good, but you would call it chill in comparison to season 2. Like the hype levels, if you like hype and overpowered characters, but like not so overpowered that it reaches the point of boring, kind of like SAO, Slime is absolutely the anime for you. Rimuru is a top tier character. I love him, like so good. Nothing but praise for Slime, and season 2 like belongs up here. It was peak isekai. So then there's Soma Spider So What, and it's like Slime's younger sibling who's lame, right? Like Slime's the pristine, highly established, everyone knows them, respects them sibling, and then Spider is just like oh, you have a sibling? That's crazy, I never knew that type of anime. The one good thing it has going for it is there's some timeline shenanigans going on, but you have to watch like half the anime, season 1 at least, before those shenanigans even like are something you even become aware of. And the other thing is like the main character, oh my gosh, I've never wanted to just like cut my ears off more. She is so annoying. Now, I do enjoy the fact that like she's becoming overpowered really fast, but not so overpowered that she can just win every fight with one move. But she's gaining skills so easily. I mean, she gains skills at like rapid speed, 10 skills this episode, 30 skills the next. Like, she gains so many skills that we'll probably never see her use all of them. But I do enjoy that element. But the other thing is, like, how I said in Slime, he stays in a cave and becomes really powerful pretty quickly. He leaves the cave by the end of episode 1. This spider spent half an anime season in a cave. And on one hand, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool, you gotta power the character up. But by like episode 6, you're like, yo, she's still in the cave? And then by episode 10, you're like, she's still in the cave? And so it's one of those things where it just gets repetitive and kind of boring. But now that I understand the whole shenanigans that are going on with the timeline and stuff, I'm pretty interested. Because like the thing is, like, her classmates also got isekai'd. Like basically her entire class got isekai'd. So the show kind of tells two stories at the same time. We see her in the cave, becoming more powerful, beating up other monsters, whatever. But we also see her classmates who have all reincarnated into like princes, princesses. They're at this academy for all the elites, basically, right? And so we see what's going on in their lives. And, we see them, we go back to the main character, a little bit of everything, right? And so the student storyline was pretty boring to me. And then the spider storyline was good, but like I said, extremely repetitive. Now that we're starting to kind of see the two headed towards each other, I'm pretty interested to see what happens. Because a lot of the time the students will be like, hey, what happened to the, because like their teacher also got isekai, because why not? And her teacher seems to know where everyone is, but won't tell the other students. So the students will be like, hey, what happened to X classmate? And the teacher will be like, oh, I can't tell you, whatever. So I want to know why it's a secret, what happened to some of the other students, and I want to see what happens when like they meet, if they meet. And also, there were like 2 students that they hadn't listed, and I think one of them we finally saw, and that character seems pretty cracked. It's like there are interesting story elements to this isekai, but like you have to sit through a lot of repetitive and annoying stuff for it to even start to get good. And then, oh my goodness, finally it starts to get good, right? Season 1 part 2. They dropped one of the worst animated anime episodes I've ever had the displeasure of watching in my life. The fight scene was so bad that like I restarted my TV. I was like, oh, maybe it's lagging, right? No, it's just garbage level animation. And then I was like, all right, maybe I'm just overreacting or whatever. I hop on Twitter to see what people are thinking. Everyone was like, bro, what happened to the animation? And that hasn't happened since then, but like that was one of the first like hype fights. And they just said, eh. So I'm gonna put it in C because similar to Sword Art, we've got like a decent concept and there are interesting elements at play. But unless it gets mad interesting, I don't think it'll even crack B tier by the end. Like that's just how it is. So I think C tier is an appropriate place for it, but you know, we'll see. Maybe it'll get really, really good. Log Horizon. Seasons 1 and 2 of Log Horizon were really, really good. It's not really like a heavily action-based isekai. They're also in a video game, but instead of focusing on like, well, it does focus on the video game element, but it also focuses on the fact that like thousands of people got isekai'd in this one, similar to Sword Art Online. But Sword Art Online, there was really no need for like a government system or anything like that because the game is still like fully operating and there's no need for rules and stuff like that. But this game, the world is kind of falling apart as they're isekai'd into it. So everyone knows how the video game works, but the NPCs are starting to have personalities. Some of the quests that would regularly occur aren't occurring. So it's super interesting. It has such an interesting world where you're just like, huh, so you're telling me the game used to work like this, but now something else is happening. I kind of want to see what that means. So it's very, very interesting. And then they're like, oh, we need a governing body because there are people who didn't want to be stuck in this game, who don't want to go on quests. They don't want to keep raiding dungeons, all that to survive. So we need to make some sort of almost like welfare system. That was, you know, you don't see that in many isekai or many anime where it was just like, all right, let's make a government. All right, now we made one. Wait a minute, it's really hard to run a government. So all of that is so interesting. But overall, like they do some action scenes every now and then where they're like, all right, we got to raid this dungeon for X reason, right? You know, killing the boss will give us the gold we need to buy something, whatever. Those action scenes are good, but not great. And then the politics, I'd say, is really, really good. The characters, okay, let's see. The main cast is huge. That's like one thing that's like both a pro and a con. The main cast is huge. There are probably like 10 main characters. Obviously there's like a core 5 or whatever, but like there's 10 main characters and then there's like 8 more characters who frequently appear and have significance. So just keeping track of them all is a trip. So I'm gonna put it in B tier. I think that's the perfect place for it to go because that's C is what you would think of the middle, but like B is the middle for this tier list. It has elements that belong in S tier. The world building based on the politics of a video game and thousands of people from different regions being pulled into that video game, S tier. The characters, a couple of them are A tier, a chunk of them are B tier, and a couple are C tier. The action ranges between B and A. So it just, B is a good place to put it. But I like these two better, so I'll put it right here. And then, let's see, the final anime on the list, No Game, No Life. Honestly, I've overhyped No Game, No Life. I got caught up in the give us a season 2 train. So like I went back and took a look at No Game, No Life. It's good. It's pretty good. But it's not like, give us a season 2. This is the best anime, the best isekai anime. We need it now. Nah, I would take a Saga of Tanya the Evil season 2 before I take a No Game, No Life season 2. But what I do love is the art style. Like the colors in this, they're so, I don't really know how to describe color that well. Flashy. They're very out there, you know, it's super bright and colorful, unique character designs. That stuff's S tier. The plot, I'd say the first like chunk of season 1 is like okay plot wise. You know, you've got this world where everything is settled through games, even like borders and war are settled through the playing of a game. I love that concept. That is amazing, right? And you've got these two characters who are elite at games. They're like geniuses, you know, they can beat you in rock, paper, scissors and chess, actual video games, combat, like any game, they're good at it, right? But it has a couple weird elements. You know, the sister is like 10. I don't know how old she is, but she's too young. And she's like in love with her brother, which, you know, that's. And then the other thing is it's pretty ecchi, which, like, there are some really good ecchi anime out there, don't get me wrong. But, like, it can be a little off-putting when you start including like the sister and the ecchi scenes, like stuff like that. I just don't really like that element of anime. So, you know, if that's what you're into, that's fine, I guess. Just don't go out and do bad things in real life. It's just a show. But I didn't really like that. And then the issue is, right when this show was about to get really good, that's when the season ends. Like, they're like, oh, we're gonna go conquer all the other territories, even though humanity is the lowest ranked, like, race, species, both in this world. You know, there are way more powerful beings out there who can use magic, everything, but because of the rules of the world, where you can literally only fight through games and stuff, they think they stand a chance at practically conquering the world. If season 2 had dropped, it probably would have been amazing. They go on this rampage, you know, we got to take this nation, this nation. Oh, what's your game? Well, you guys want to play solitaire, fine. And then, you know, it gets all crazy, dramatic, kind of like Death Note style, where you take a simple thing like writing in a notebook and you scale it up by 1,000, and all of a sudden it's like one of the most hype scenes you've seen in an anime. I think No Game No Life had the potential to go in that direction, but it just ended like right there. We didn't get a season 2. So like I can't rank No Game No Life based on what I think was going to happen in the show. I can only rank it based on what does happen in the show. And because of that, I'm actually going to put it in B tier. Like, cool concept, great art style, some weird things going on with some of the characters, some cool other characters. I think one of my favorite scenes from the show, it's like they're playing this game where like any word you say like becomes reality, right? Like it happens. Like you could say like plane, and now there's a plane in the arena that they're playing in. It's a little hard to describe, but basically the goal is to make it so your opponent either runs out of words or cannot speak, right? And it was so cool how the main duo, they managed to outwit this like genius character who they're playing against, because they use words that character didn't know, like from our world, you know, like crust and mantle or whatever, to like make parts of Earth disappear. That was such a good scene. Like that is one of my favorite anime scenes in general. But overall, you know, it's a little bit of an overhyped isekai, if I'm being honest. But it's pretty solid. Give us the season 2, and I'm sure you'll see its stock increase. But for now, that's that. So that's the tier list. You got ReZero and S, Mushuko, Slime, Konosuba, Saga of Tanya the Evil, and Ascendance of Bookworm and A. Villainess, Shield Hero, Log Horizon, No Game No Life is B. Sword Art, Spider, 300 Years Killing Slimes, and Angel Beats in C, and then Full Dive in D. If I had to describe each tier, S is just like elite, amazing, so good. A is really, really good, solid, maybe just like one more thing would have pushed it up to S. B is like, it's really good. I recommend it. Yeah, you should watch it. C is mostly just like wasted potential. It's like, this could have been amazing, but. And then D is, nah, don't watch that. It's a waste of your time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I plan on making more tier lists, reviews, anime recommendations, seasonals, just everything anime related. So if you enjoyed the video, a like goes a long way, and subscribe for more anime content. Peace.